the video.
Come on. He's dead. He's fucking dead. Oh, fuck.
Out there, never reaching the end. Letters I've written, never meaning to send. Beauty I've always missed with these eyes before. And just what the truth say anymore, 'cause I love you. Yes, I love you. I love you. Gazing at people, some they cannot defend, but just what you can be, you'll be in the end, 'cause I love you. Yes, I love you.
What's up, guys? Welcome to a very special episode of DDLive. And I have some very special guests with me. Big thank you to Beth for that awesome video, though, of Rob Zombie's Halloween, Nights in White Satin, Halloween 2, sorry. Which movie are we talking about again, guys?
Halloween 2.
Yeah. I have Davey Deathray, and I have Nick from the Lost River Drive-In. This is the first time I've actually gotten to stream with Davey Deathray, and he's the guy who came up with this idea. He reached out to me. He's like, hey, why don't we do like a 15-year anniversary for Rob Zombie's Halloween 2? And I was like, Jesus, that's a great idea. First, let me say hello. Davey, how are you doing?
Doing great, man. Really excited. I've been watching your channel since like 2016. So pretty surreal to be here, but I started my channel about a year ago. wanted to get things going and figured why not try to reach for some of the big guns to talk about a movie that I know we all love. So yeah, thanks for agreeing to do this and you know, hosting it as well. Yeah, pumped for the weekend and pumped to talk about a movie that I think is finally getting a little bit more love than it has
Just
for
a
a
little,
long time.
just a little.
Just a smidge.
Chat, wouldn't you think that Davey's been doing this for like, I don't know, 5 years? The way he talks and everything, he's very natural, very natural. So
I've done so much research, a lot of sweat equity.
Nick, how you doing, brother? Nice to see you again.
I'm good, man. It's nice to see you. Nice to see you again too, Davey. Yeah, no, he's got that radio voice. That's what he's got.
He does,
He's got
he
that
does.
radio voice. So no, I'm doing good, man. You know, it's crazy. You guys were talking about it at the start, and it's like 15 years. Wow.
Yeah, wow.
It'll be 15 years on Wednesday, August 28th. I still have my movie ticket. I don't know how you guys are with them, but I put them in the case of the movie once I get the movie, and I still have the ticket. Makes me feel old. I know you guys are both a little older than me, but well, you know, Lee doesn't look a day over 35. I don't know how old you are, Davey, but
I'm 42. 42.
Okay, so I'm about to be 30, and but it just takes me back. I'm like, holy crap, it's actually perfect. We're doing this, Lee, because anybody that's seen us ever work together in this space, that's how I found Lee's channel when he did his Halloween 2 Revisited all those years ago. That's how I found his channel. So yeah,
that's so freaking cool. Especially when you tell, like, anytime somebody tells me they've been watching me since 2016, that just freaking blows my mind. I forget that I've been doing this for that freaking long. It's crazy. But you know, the chat here, I recognize there's some people in chat that I have seen for years, you know, at least like sometimes 5 years, like Beth there. You got Blu-ray Addict, Rosalia, Trina, Ashton, Adrian, James, so many people, and I thank you guys so much. Vinny, yeah, but we're gonna have fun tonight. We're gonna talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. The first question I got to ask you guys is, so we got the theatrical, and then we got the director's cut. I find that I watch the theatrical more often. I don't know why that is. Do I watch it because it's a little shorter, a little bit more condensed, or? But I just watched the director's cut again just yesterday, just to refresh myself on this. And there's definitely some differences. Which ones do you guys prefer, Nick? Which one do you like the best?
So I'm different with it. It's kind of weird because when it came out on DVD, I remember I told my mom I was sick that day. I totally lied. She went to work, and I walked to Movie Gallery and bought it, and because it was close to my house. I get home, I pop it in, and I'm like, this is not what I watched in theaters. What the hell is this ending? Like, this is BS. Track down the theatrical. So now what I do is I watch the director's cut until they get to the shack, and then I put in the theatrical cut. Now,
that's the way to do it.
Is that a lot of work? Yeah, it's more work than necessary, honestly, but I hate that director's cut ending. But everything else about it, I feel like adds to the movie. It being 2 years later instead of one, the relationship with Annie and Laurie is so much more fleshed out in the director's cut. So that's what I do. They get to the shack, I put in the theatrical.
I actually made my own cut of I did exactly what you just said, Nick. I literally put the ending of the theatrical on the director's cut, and that's the way I usually like to watch it, you know. But I have to dig. I think I have it on disc somewhere. So, what about you, Davey?
So I always watch the director's cut. I'm just like, you know, I'll take a couple of those negative points towards the end. I'll take that for all the character development. Everything to me that like feels a little more meaty. Like the reason why I show up for Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is the character development and to have something different. Like we have all these other normal ass like Michael Myers movies that you can go to and to watch if you want paint by numbers. Like if you want paint by numbers, they're there. So I really like when chances are taken. It's one of the reasons why I really like the David Gordon Green trilogy. Even if everything doesn't work for me, it's kind of like you're grading on a curve, you know? And yeah, I always go director's cut. I wish Michael didn't say die, obviously. I hate it. Don't need him talking. But overall, man, it's just like what you get from the performances, I think the editing is a lot more thoughtful. I watched it with Rob's commentary as well in preparation for this.
Nice.
And one of the things he talks about a lot is he felt like the editing was rushed. And when he went back, he was like, oh man, like there are these things that I need to bring back in. And I feel like everything he brings back in tells a better story. I'm a guy that likes character development. I like arcs. And I think story and characters should be above everything else. So I'll take that. Just like this, the same reasons I'll take the producer's cut of Curse over the theatrical cut, because the things it does well, the things it does well, I really like. There's some scenes in that movie that makes me feel like I'm watching the original. So I'll take that, and I'll take a non like new metal score, a score that's a little more timeless. So yeah, director's cut all the way, every time.
Well, when I was watching the director's cut yesterday, and I guess it had been quite a few years since I watched it, because it's almost as if they cut some of the scenes right before they got really intense, especially with Laurie and Annie. It's almost like the mood completely changed from one scene to another, you know, when they're having like breakfast.
Yeah.
And it just seems like nice and peaceful. And then they cut it. But if you watch the director's cut, Laurie just unloads on Annie and like starts screaming at her. And I think you're right. It does give you a little bit more perspective as to what Laurie's going through, you know, especially post the first movie. Right. And that's one thing I wanted to discuss. I sent you guys like just a list of talking points. And I think this movie is the most psychologically driven Halloween movie out of the entire franchise. Like it really gets in your head, and I think you see up front, you almost forget about Myers. You're seeing the effect that Myers has emotionally on characters, especially Laurie. And I love that about this. Nick, is that one of the driving forces behind why you love Halloween 2, or is there something different?
Yeah, see, I'm not a nihilist. Like I'm really, really not. But there is something about.
I swear I'm not a nihilist.
I swear I'm not. There's something about when a movie is like, hey, you know how? Because Hollywood is so Hollywood. It's always a happy ending. Things always work out. And Rob decided to take some serious subject matter and go like, what if it didn't work out though? Like, what if it got worse? Like, and I feel like that's a really interesting way to look at it, because especially in our country, and it has been for decades, some people don't have the resources to pull themselves out of dark places like that. And sometimes that is a reality. It's sad. It sucks, but sometimes you can unravel, and that unraveling doesn't stop. And so, yeah, this movie has so many layers to it, man. It's like an onion. I always hate when people argue about hating this movie because they're like, Michael grunts and he looks like a hobo. And it's like, you guys are missing like everything about this movie. The entire point of this movie is like PTSD and the effect of it. And instead of, oh, everything got better, we're best friends again, and everything's great, and Michael's gone. Now, okay, what if that didn't happen though? And it almost, I feel like, kind of challenges the viewer to, I don't know, accept something they're not used to seeing. And I think for a lot of people, they didn't jive with that vibe. But yeah, it's incredibly psychological, as brutal as it is. And it is a very brutal movie. Like you said, man, I don't even really pay much attention to Myers in this movie. There's a couple scenes where I'm like, oh yeah. Like most of the time I'm in it for Laurie and Annie and Sheriff Brackett. Like that's what takes it home for me personally.
Yeah, I think this is definitely Laurie's movie, even more than Myers. I mean, Laurie's always been kind of the counterbalance to Myers, but I don't look at this movie, I guess, in that fashion. I like it because I'm fully focused on Laurie and how is she gonna pick up the pieces. You know, they show her at the beginning looking at the mirror, and if you just look at the first quarter of this movie, you would swear that Laurie's not going to make it out of this. Even if Myers wasn't in the picture, she's going down a really dark path. And you wouldn't be surprised if she slipped into, drug use, depression, pick your poison. And then you got Myers coming back and she's having to rise to the occasion. So you could kind of compare like the way they dealt with Laurie in Halloween 2018 is a completely different way, because she pretty much
Yeah.
became, like a warrior.
Mhm.
Whereas that's not at all what Laurie is in this movie. She's pretty much just forced to get up. So, Davey, what would you like prefer in terms of Laurie? Do you like that she's, like we really get in her head and just see how fucked up she is, or do you kind of prefer what they do with, like, say, Jamie Lee Curtis in her gung ho type movies? Because I almost feel like Jamie Lee Curtis would be like, no, you need to rewrite that. I don't want to be that character.
Yeah.
Whereas I applaud Scout Taylor Compton for being up for anything, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, her performance here is amazing. She knocks it out of the park. I think that there's nothing. I like her performance in the first film. Like, she does a great job at playing, like, sweet Laurie, but also there's like a little naughty, like more modern kind of side to her too. She's not as like Jamie Lee Curtis in the original looks straight up like a mom, even though she's supposed to be 17. Like, she just looks like bland and boring and like done, I don't mean mom in that way. You know what I mean when I'm saying mom. But Scout here, yeah, I feel like, one of the things that Rob talks about in the commentary is that they didn't have a lot of time to rehearse. And I think, like, in a way, that might have been, I always think about, like, when you're making a movie, it's almost like the hurdles you run into. They're like opportunities to be more creative and maybe like squeeze some really nice juice. Like, you have a low budget, so you're going to find out a way to make the effects like practical and simple, but they're still going to be effective because you'll shoot them right. And then with limited rehearsal time here, I feel so much urgency in the performances. And I think, like, that's one of the things. It's like, guys, we can't fuck around. We don't have a lot of time. Like, we got to nail this. And I think part of like nailing this is trusting your actors. I think Rob does a really great job casting people, not just people like Scout who are going to carry over, and of course Brad Dourif, but then having people that are just in the movie for a little bit, like Mary Birdsong from Reno 911 as Loomis's assistant. She's awesome. Getting what is it? Howard Hessman from Head of the Class, which I love that show from the 80s. Really fun little sitcom. He plays the owner of the record store, like the older hippy dippy guy. And I think what's really cool is when you bring in those people, you trust them. You're sort of in a crunch. You certainly don't trust the studio because of everything that they've been doing with you. And I feel like what they get here is so awesome. It's another reason why I think the director's cut is better, because you're really seeing like more of what they left out there for everyone. Like, they kind of let it all hang out. I do feel like, Scout in this film, one of the reasons why Myers isn't in it so much is that she's sort of like a beacon. Like, yeah, he sees his mom and the horse and his younger self and everything, but it's almost like he sort of like feels that he's getting closer to her. And the closer Michael gets to Laurie, the more like Michael Laurie becomes. And I think that's like a huge part of the psychology here. And I think people should remember, when you look back at films, everything's like context, right? So it's like when you watch something that's older, you have to sort of try to put yourself in that time. And I saw a comment earlier, I think it might have been Scott that said this, maybe it was somebody else, about saying that it was like, it took balls to focus on the trauma. And yeah, then it wasn't a thing. Now it's the thing. And so I think that's really cool too, that in that way it's ahead of its time. And man, I gotta say real quick, I'm not that big of a fan of his remake. I just think it's sort of unnecessary. I think it does things that work and things that I like, but remaking the original film is sort of like a fool's errand. But I heard that this movie was awful, and I sat down and watched it. I didn't see it in the theater because of how I felt about the remake. And then I watched it at home. My roommate walked in and he's like, "Oh, you just finished that piece of shit?" And I turned to him and I was like, "That's like the best Halloween movie I've seen in so long." Like, I immediately fell in love. Like, I was like, this is amazing, especially from how I felt about his remake, like total 180. So man, hats off.
It's like toxic fandom existed in the Halloween franchise, I think, before any other. Well, I'll be fair. I'm sure Star Wars had it too, but I mean, we're talking 2009. And I remember after I watched Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I kind of didn't want to tell anybody that I liked it, because
You had to come out of that
Everybody-
closet, Lee. I got to come out of the Halloween 2 closet.
I had to come
everyone.
out of the closet because everybody was
I'm a
just
fan.
blasting the shit out of this movie, which I expected. And I happen to be the Halloween fan that likes a little bit of the bizarre and the weird. And when they take Myers and twist him up and do weird things with him, most people don't like that stuff. I love that stuff. That's why I love this franchise so much, because it just goes balls out with some of the choices that it makes. But also, I like the sibling angle. And I think Rob Zombie really likes, I think that's what gravitated him towards the franchise, was because he wanted to focus on this trauma, but also this family dynamic that you have with especially Laurie and Michael. And I think just having them be siblings makes it work that much better. And I think the only comparison between this and the original Halloween 2, besides the opening hospital sequence, is that Laurie finds out in both movies that Myers is her brother. And I didn't even realize that until I threw the director's cut back in today. And the scene where she's talking to, I think, Brie Grant and the other girl. And she's like, I just found out he's my brother. Nick, how do you feel about the sibling angle? Or do you care? Do you want Michael to be just a force of nature and not have a sibling?
You know what's interesting about that? When the first movie got announced, and we knew the bones of it, that this was just going to be a sequel to the first one, write everything else out, no familial connection. I remember being like, thank God, thank God we're not going to have that anchor around our ankles. And then after that trilogy was done, I was like, I kind of prefer the sibling angle. Like, I don't know. I feel like part of me just wanted to see it without the sibling and go, because I was excited about something new, a new take on it. And then having seen it, it's like, as much as I love Halloween Ends, guys, if you've never seen me before, okay, Lee and I have a lot of similar opinions on this franchise. I like the weird too. And I'm telling you right now, I just feel like after that trilogy, I was like, it was cool to see something different, but I think I prefer the sibling. I don't know. Cause there's moments in 2018 and where you're just kind of like, but he's here like by happenstance. Like it always comes back to Laurie. Yeah. So it's like, I prefer the familial connection. In fairness, this series never really addressed it all that well, except H2O they did. But H2, I'm thankful that they really, really did. This was the first time we really got to see that it play out. You saw some of it in Halloween 5 with Jamie and Michael and that familial connection. Another weird one. I love y'all. But I think I prefer it now.
I had to highlight that comment, Jamie Hart. I love the weird, because I think that might be, if I had to bundle up the 10 different reasons I love Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 so much, I think you can condense it all into, it's weird. It's almost like how can I piss off the audience? What can I do? Like, they want this, I'm going to give them that. They want to go up, I want to go down. And sometimes you can get, like, I'm half and half with Rob Zombie. I don't adore every single one of his movies, but when he gets it right, I think he really gets it right. And I think, coming back to what Davey was saying earlier, it's the characters. Rob Zombie always has these familiar actors that come in, and you can't help but just love them. Like, I'm such a Jeff Daniel Phillips fanatic. Like, there's something about that guy. I want to hang out with him so bad. I want to just sit and shut up and listen to him talk. He's just, and we get 2 of him in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. He's in the band at the end. And then he's also the bouncer. And some of the lines, can't afford the new tits, can you loan me some bones? And this is stuff that you would only hear in a Rob Zombie movie. So most of the time in a Halloween movie, you kind of focus on a couple of major things. You're usually not focusing on the bouncer in the club that has this weird fist pump right before he takes out the trash.
Beautiful. He has my favorite line in the movie. Yeah. When he looks at Michael and says, "Hey man, don't give me no reason."
Don't give me no
Like,
reason.
that's the best. I'm like, oh my God. And he calls Michael a dirty fucking hippie or whatever. I'm like, well, that's great, because the people that hate this movie say the same thing. So the movie already said it.
Yeah,
so if you're going to go around and call him Hobo Myers, guess what? They know.
Yes.
You know,
Hit the
so
bricks, Dorothy. Yes, hit the bricks, Dorothy. It's just, oh man. But even if you don't know that's Michael Myers, that dude is huge. Why are you talking that way to that guy? Like, he's massive. I would never, but hey, Jeff Daniel Phillips, man, give him his flowers. He's also great. It's my least favorite Rob Zombie movie, 31. But I will say Jeff Daniel Phillips is great in that movie. I love this guy. I love this guy.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's great in like a bad movie. You still love Jeff Daniel Phillips. He's just very charismatic, I guess. I don't know. You know what? I want to back up because I meant to ask you guys this. I want to hear about when you first saw this movie, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Before you went into it, what your expectations were. Because we already knew about the previous movie, which I'll say right now, getting this out of there, I'm not a fan of Rob Zombie's Halloween. It's fine, but it's like bottom 3 of my ranking every time. I try and I try and I try, and it feels like half of it is trying to be a remake, and the other half of it is telling the story of young Michael that I don't find that interesting. So I thought for sure when I went into this movie that it was going to be more of the same, although I was intrigued because of the trailer. And this is a chance for Rob Zombie to give his own distinct vision. And I think he really knocked it out of the park. But I'll tell you know what, I'm going to go with Nick first. Tell me the first time you saw this movie. I want to know that experience.
Well, I was 15. And you guys remember Yahoo Movies. You go to the movie section on Yahoo, and that's where if a new trailer had dropped, you could see it on the homepage and you'd click it. I remember coming home from school every day and getting on our computer and seeing if anything had dropped about Halloween 2. Like, I was so excited for it. And I can still remember the first teaser that was like 40 seconds that they released. It was like a video of like The Mask because the alternate poster that said H2, it was a video of that like artwork, and it was just like a slowed version of the piano. It would just do the like dun, dun, and then it'd be like, and it was so cool. Like, I just thought, oh man, I'm getting so hype. And I remember when the trailer came out, I was seeing TV spots for it everywhere. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is awesome. I can't wait to see this movie. Went and saw it with my buddies opening night. And from day one, I was in love with this movie, and I saw Rob Zombie's Halloween in theaters as well. And that movie blew me away when I saw it at 13. I thought it was like the shit. And then now I'm very much like, I'm like you guys. I think the only movie in the series it beats out for me is Resurrection when it comes to my ranking. I just find the first half laborious. I'm not, again, it's like doing the not brother and sister thing. Cool. Like, let's see it. And then you see it and you're like, yeah, I don't prefer that route. So, but the second half is a really fun, fast paced remake. It's fun. Like I have a good time with it. So yeah, but this one, it was from day one, man. Day one, I was in love with it. And I knew it wasn't going over well in the theater. There were people laughing at stuff that they shouldn't have been laughing at. I knew, like, I was sitting in the theater, like, I feel like so out of place because like I am eating this up. And I don't think other people are. And then we got in the car. I was with my buddies, Tommy, Chris, and Steven, and none of them liked it. I mean, none of them liked it. And I was like, oh, damn, that's crazy. I think it's like my favorite one. So wild.
I love that.
And then, it's just over time, I've started to, I've gotten to a point where I don't think I can love it even more, any more than I do. But it's interesting, isn't it, to see the revisionist history now by some. Like, you know what? I like this movie. This movie's pretty good. It didn't get its due back then. I'm like, yeah, I remember when y'all did that with Halloween 3, and I can't wait till 15 years from now when you're all doing it with Halloween Ends. So yeah, just saying.
It is. So what's kind of crazy, just to really quickly hit on Halloween 3 is, you know, that came out in an era where it was like really difficult to see that movie once it came out and flopped. You know, it would show up on TV when I was a kid and I would watch the Halloween movies on like USA Network in the early 90s. It would pop on and you just had no frame of reference. So it's not even like you thought it was a bad movie. You were just like, what the hell is this? And I would bail. I mean, I was like 8 or 9. So like, give me a break.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Yes.
But the first, and then it was like, it was really difficult to find a print of it. The very first time I sat down and watched Halloween 3 Season of the Witch was like 07. This is like, I'm watching the Angry Video Game Nerd on YouTube. And then I downloaded, like on some site, I had to download a copy of it, watched it and thought it was great. But it was the first time I ever really gave it a chance. And I do think that what's really cool about people being like, oh, it didn't get its due is what it really means is that people are listening and they're open-minded. So when they watch, they watch one of your guys' videos, maybe they agree with you on like 80% of the stuff and they're like, what the hell is this Halloween 2 nonsense? But then they actually watch it. And I think what's really cool is film fans and just fans of art is, you have a great discussion and you explain why you like something or why something works or doesn't work for you. The next time that person watches the movie or experiences that piece of art, they can sort of help that like inform their opinion. Maybe you're like saying something that's like opening something, like the way that we talk about literature in English class and we examine it, and maybe you're just saying something that makes them see like, oh, that's what they're saying. Like when everyone reads a poem, we don't understand everything the same exact way. And when you watch a film, it's sort of like, it kind of helps to have a buddy be like, well, I actually sort of liked it and this is why. And that's certainly been the case for me with a lot of movies in my life where I'm a rewatcher. So maybe the second or third time I like them more. Or like something like Donnie Darko, I like it even less the more I watch it. So it all just depends.
Some of the best comments.
Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say some of the best comments I've ever gotten as a YouTuber. It's on my Halloween 2 stuff. And people are like, dude, you made me give this movie another chance. I did a breakdown last year, like a video essay on it. It was like 30 minutes long. I put a lot of like time into it. It blew up. Like for me at the time, it was well over 10,000 views. Like I was like, oh, this is cool. Like this is awesome. And so many comments of people like, I never viewed it from this lens. I didn't understand this about it. I wasn't able to separate. Again, with this movie, I think a lot of people went into it the first time expecting something, didn't get what they expected, and they turned away from it. And then maybe didn't watch it for 10 years. And now that they know what to expect, they go in and like, you know what? I actually kind of dig that. Like I'm a fan of that. So yeah, those are the best comments. And I know, I'm sure you guys agree. If you've ever lauded something, talked about something you just love on your channel or on social media, and someone replies and goes, dude, I see this totally differently now. And it's because of you. That is so cool. Like so cool.
The reason they do that, Nick, is because they see how passionate you are. When you're talking about any movie, when they see that, oh my God, this guy's like, he's just really going hard in the paint on this aspect of this movie and why it resonates with him, I think that makes people curious to go back. I mean, it happens to me. I get curious sometimes when I might watch one of you guys and I'm like, man, am I missing something here? Because this movie didn't strike that chord like it struck this guy or this girl. And so I love that. I love that about movies. And I think in this day and age, I think so many people don't realize that it's all art. And we are all wired differently. We're not the same. And I think art, it affects people differently. And I had this guy write this comment to me today, and he was like, I don't like you. I don't trust you anymore because you changed your mind on this movie. And it sounds silly, doesn't it, when I say it? But that's literally what he said. He was
You're
mad
a flip-flopper, Lee.
Yeah, I flip-flopped. I changed my mind on this. And I'm like,
art.
I'm like, I guarantee you, even if you don't change your mind, I guarantee you the second time you watch any movie, you will notice something, one thing, maybe two things, a little different than the first. And you might have the same opinion. Your opinion might not change, but I guarantee you, when you watch it the second time, you're gonna be like, oh, I didn't really like that the first time. That's what movies do to me. And sometimes I'm like looking for something to get invested in. And it just happens to be Halloween being my favorite franchise. And you're shocked that my second viewing, I might change my mind a little bit. I'm an emotional movie watcher. I don't know about you guys. I'm guessing you are too. Some people, movies are just like, going to the store and buying a 12-pack of Diet Coke. They're just rinse and repeat, in and out, they're done. And then for some people, movies are your life, and they really are. And that's why I'm here doing what I'm doing now, because movies just mean so much to me. Even the bad ones, I love discussing them. Right?
No, dude, I mean, unashamed to admit that I unashamed to admit that I teared up in the theater at the end of Halloween Ends when they were doing the shot of the mask. And as soon as those first notes for Don't Fear the Reaper came up, I welled up. I was sitting there like, holy shit, dude. Like that was such a good touch. And and there's certain movies that it's a lot. It takes a lot out of me to watch them because they get to me like that. So I very rarely watch them. And one of those is, believe it or not, No Time to Die. Because that was my James Bond. Daniel Craig was my Bond. So like I saw that in theaters, and that ending wrecked me. And then it came out on 4K. I watched it again. Still, same thing, wrecked me. And I was like, I'm not ready to say goodbye to that era. Like I didn't want to say goodbye. And so, yeah, for people like us, if you're a cinephile, you find certain things that really just get into your bones. And like, sometimes you're like, this is it's like, hey, break out the red dress, babe, light the candles. Like it's a special event kind of night. Like, there's movies like that. And like, there are a lot to watch.
I get a hankering for a movie every now and then where you're just like, oh, like, I don't even care. Like I'm putting in Friday the 13th part 3D today. Like it's my favorite one. I'm just like, I'm just in the mood. And for me, it's like it's in the top part, but it's like every now and then there's just that movie where you're just like, or, like you were saying, Nick, about people commenting. It's like people get excited hearing you talk about a movie. I think that's a really cool thing about, content creation and just being involved in the community regardless, even the people in the chat, like you can get excited about, like somebody starts talking about something and you're like, man, it's been a while. I want to check that out. Like, I do think that I know certain people that watch movies and they don't revisit them, but I honestly think there's a lot of value in revisiting them because I think it's the best kind of flip flop, if you will, Lee. Like, I think, it's one of those things that to recognize something new in a piece of art, to like, listening to a record that I've heard like hundreds of times and hearing something new, hearing like some little like part of the harmonic content that's like weaved in there that I just missed or whatever, like that's like an epiphany. And I think sometimes you can have that with a film. And certainly I think with this film, with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, like that certainly happened with me. I enjoyed it the first time. I fell more and more in love every single time I watched it. I shit you not. And I'm not even like, I think Rob Zombie, as far as a filmmaker, like visually stunning. What he takes from his influences, like I see the Kubrick, I see the beauty. I mean, a lot of filmmakers are influenced by Kubrick, and I'm not saying he's like up to that level, but certainly like he's very creative with how he shoots a film. This film looks really good. Even on my Blu-ray, there's like this nice grain to it that I really enjoy. Like, I don't want a film to look like it's on glossy print all the time. Like, I just want it to look how the fucking filmmaker wanted it to goddamn look. And I don't need anyone else screwing with that shit. Like, even if you remaster your album, I want to hear it on vinyl. I don't want to listen to it on Spotify.
Davey and Lee, interesting thing about that. Well, you're exactly right, Davey. It's part of the reason I love H2 as well, is the look, the aesthetic. There is rumor, we don't know it for certain, but Sean Clark did tell Christian and I that there have been rumblings over the years that part of the reason why we haven't gotten a 4K of H2 yet specifically is because Rob doesn't want it. Like he doesn't want it.
I love that.
He likes the way it looks, and he does not want it to get that treatment, which kind of pisses me off because I want a special edition with a ton more special features. But I understand that he shot that movie on film. He loves the way it looks. He doesn't want that, and I respect it. It's
my favorite looking Halloween movie. Maybe even over. Well, I mean, I do love the look of the first movie too. But yeah, I love that 16 millimeter gritty. It's different. Like it's just another reason that it sets that movie apart from the rest of the franchise. You don't even have to watch anything before Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. You could just jump right in and you're already like, what's going on. And it's just that movie, more than any other Halloween movie to me, is more of an experience. You know what I mean? Yeah. I love movies like that. They're just so immersive. And, I didn't give you the first time I saw the movie. So
There you
it's
go.
kind of interesting because it came out in August, which I remember back then you had Resurrection coming out in July, which is the weirdest thing ever. And then you had Rob Zombie's Halloween, I think, coming out in August, and then Halloween 2 coming out in August. And I'd given up on Halloween movies coming out in October. I was like, what happened to Halloween movies coming out in October? So I was in Japan at the time, and they had on base, they had a theater, and they like never showed anything that I wanted to watch. And if they did, it was like a couple months late. So I get back, I'm literally coming back to the States on Halloween, like the day Halloween, October 30th, actually. And I get back and I'm like, they're re-releasing Rob Zombie's Halloween for 2 nights only, October 30th and 31st. And I was like, yes, I get to go see this finally. Because I have this tradition too. I want to see every Halloween movie on the big screen. You know, I'm like, it's like obsessive compulsive. So I get there and I'm finally going to watch this movie. There's literally 3 people in the theater. Me, my wife, and my niece. And we're all, you know, it doesn't matter where we're sitting. We're the only ones in the theater. And as soon as the movie started and you got Richard Brake talking about corpse fucking, and I'm just like,
Everyone's favorite
okay,
topic.
now it's awkward.
Jam or jelly?
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and so we're watching the movie and I'm just like, oh God, this is embarrassing. You know, because we all have our, what would you call it? The horror movie that if Aunt Margaret comes over, you grab the VCR and you throw it out the window. You know, you don't want her to see it. So
Yeah.
this is one of those type of situations. And I look over and both my wife and my niece they're freaking out cold at the beginning.
That
of the
early
movie.
in the movie. Oh, so they just went for a nap.
Well, I think it was
a
the
dark
jet
room.
lag too. Jet lag coming back to the States from overseas, your body has to like adjust. So I have never been so happy that people sitting next to me were asleep, because then I just got to enjoy it myself and I didn't have to worry about some of this movie just goes hard. You know what I mean? And it's violent as hell. So I knew that they would hate it. But yeah, it was just a weird experience. So I want to
real quick, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I was living in this house called the Zombie House, where we did like punk rock shows in our basement in Portland, Oregon, in Southeast Portland, Oregon. And this must have been like 2010, like after the film came out. And I just sat and watched it by myself in the living room. So I have no theater experience for this film. But when I saw the remake, man, I went with the girl that I was dating at the time, was crying. Yeah. Crying in the theater because of how brutally violent it was. Yes. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can't believe this shit right now. Like, not only am I not really enjoying it, but my girlfriend at the time is crying next to me. But I thought, I was like, you know what? I just got to give this one a chance. Because I've been, ever since I first saw, you know, Halloween 2 was my first experience, the original Halloween 2 on the USA Network when I was like 9 years old. And I fell in love with it. And I dressed up as Michael that year. I told my parents I want to be that guy for Halloween. My dad took me to the hardware store. This is like 1990, maybe 91. And there's no masks. So he just painted my face and I wore black sweatpants and a sweatshirt. And I had a retractable knife that went, when you pushed it in. And I was Michael Myers for the first time. And here I am at 42 years old, still dressing as Michael Myers for Halloween.
Well, if you remember back in the day, I guess before the DGG trilogy and all that, it was hard to find a good Michael Myers mask. On Halloween, at least for me, I saw tons of people dressed like Freddy and Jason, but I rarely saw people dressed like Myers. And when they did, I was like, ooh, and it always freaked people out because you rarely saw somebody in a legit Myers mask walking around. And it was like, I was just like jealous, you know, like I want that. And so I ended up buying like a Halloween 6 mask. And now everybody has a legit look behind me, you know?
Yeah. The Halloween 6 mask is great, by the way. I will not take the maligned words of Barry from Wolfman's Got Nards. How dare you say it looks like heavy clay? Dressing up as Michael Myers I love Barry, but I just got to give him shit about that. Especially for a guy that likes H2O. How dare you talk about masks? How dare you talk about masks? But in Portland, man, going out for Halloween dressed as Michael Myers, like I would go out, like let's go to the bar, and you just get to freak everyone the fuck out. Like it was amazing. Like I'm sitting there, I had a menu in front of my face at one point. I pull down the menu, and this guy across the patio dressed as Batman is like, he shudders, and he looks over at me, and he's like, "Hey, Michael." And I head tilted, and he goes, "You're freaking me the fuck out, man." Like,
yeah, it's the
amazing.
one mask. Like, you could be sitting next to somebody and they could be wearing a Jason mask or even a Freddy mask, and they can look at you and you really don't have much of an, oh, cool. Yeah, Jason and Freddy. But there's something about the Myers mask, because I've done this, you know, when I would have my Halloween 6 mask and I would walk around and scare kids, and I'd walk nice and slow. You know, I got
this
my
is
walk
before
down.
you had a YouTube channel. You'd walk around, scare kids. It's great.
And I think the parents were even more afraid than the kids when I would just like look at them nice and slow, just like Myers does. It freaks people out. And it's the only monster mask, I think, that just looking at it, it's just something like unbearable to people.
I have the same thing when we have trick-or-treaters. The kids run up, they don't care. I seriously have parents that stay on the sidewalk and they're like, I'm just no. Like, no.
Yeah.
I even had a little kid that was probably like 5 years old with one of the cheesy Michael masks on, and he came up and I was like, oh my God, this is great. I was like, do you want to kill me? I was like, you kill me, I kill you. And we like took a little picture, and the parents busted out the phone and got a little picture. And I'm like, this is sweet. Couple Michael Myerses killing each other on Halloween. Like, this is what it's all about.
I got a question for Nick, and we're going to enter because we're like at the halfway point of our stream right now. Is Halloween Ends the only movie that has the effect that Halloween has? Is there another movie that, and I've seen this firsthand, that literally makes people that hate the movie, like that movie makes them so angry that people like it? And I was really having a conversation with myself the other day, and I was thinking, is there another movie? I guess in horror, because maybe Star Wars Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. That was going to be my answer. The Last Jedi is the other movie that first comes to mind for me. It wasn't as bad with a movie like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but that movie definitely was one of those movies that, you know, indie fans were really.
How dare you like this movie?
Yeah. But no, when it comes to horror, I mean, just sitting here thinking like off the top of my head, I guess you could make arguments here and there for Seed of Chucky, especially in recent years. People are they either love that movie or they hate that movie. I'm someone that hates it, and I'm unashamed to say. But like, no, in the major franchises, I do not believe there is as controversial a movie as Halloween Ends. I truly, truly don't. And, you know, it's like, at least you can make the argument in like Hellraiser where like everybody fucking hates Revelations. Well, yeah, because it's a piece of shit. Like it's not even a movie. But like Halloween Ends
is a well-shot movie.
Yeah,
you know?
This is a professional movie with big name actors and money behind it. And it's taking itself seriously. I'd argue even more seriously than 2018 or Kills. And it's just, yeah, man, there's something about this movie. You mention it and it's like, oh shit. Oh no! Like
I've lost more subscribers to Halloween Ends than anything else.
It's the only time I got death threats on YouTube. Only time I got death threats on YouTube was Halloween Ends, and like I don't care, but like I was shocked to see the comments I was getting the night I put up my review, and because the movie was so controversial, you do a review that night, like I did, like I do with every movie I go see, and then you just go to your analytics and you're like, oh my god. This video is exploding. And then you're like looking at the comments and you're like, oh my God. Like it was bad. But yeah, I don't think there is one.
Yeah, they will call you an idiot. You know, they'll call you names.
You're not a true fan. You're not a true fan.
You're not a true fan. There's something wrong with you. And I constantly get this one with every movie I review. This dude likes Halloween Ends. I can't take him seriously. Every movie. I get it in almost every freaking video. And it's
become it's so political, right? It's like it's almost as bad, maybe even worse than saying like laying out all your political beliefs on YouTube.
It is.
You know, it's like because people treat it that way. They'll just go right back to that thing. Well, you think Halloween Ends is good, so you're out of here. You know, and it's like, I mean, I walked out of the movie. I watched it opening night on IMAX, and like my wife and I both walked out, and I was like, "What'd you think?" And she was like, "That was really good." And I was like, "Yeah,
That's the weird
that
thing,
might be my
Davey.
favorite out of the whole trilogy."
Dude,
Like it
I was in
blew
a
my
packed
mind.
theater watching Halloween Ends, and when I walked out of that theater, everybody around me is like, "Whoa, that was fucking awesome!" Everybody was freaking out. They loved it. It was like so unique and fresh. And so I was like, "Oh, okay. I think everybody's going to be like me, and they're going to like this movie, and it's not going to be like controversial or anything."
Yeah.
And as soon as I walked out of the theater and opened my phone like just went.
Mhm.
You know.
And there were two things I wanted to say about that specific thing too, Lee. And I'm sure you've heard this on YouTube because I know I have. One, I will say that Halloween Ends, I walked out of the theater having the feeling I was hoping to have with
Yep.
18. I was so excited
yeah.
for 18. And when I walked out of that movie, the hype was so high that I was bound to be a little let down. There's no way it could have reached that. And I think because Halloween 2018 did that, Ends, I went in a little more lukewarm. Like, I hope it's okay. I hope it's pretty good. And it blew me away. So it took 3 movies to get there, David Gordon Green, but you gave me the feeling I wanted since Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. But the thing I was going to say about the YouTube and the reaction to it, I've been accused sometimes like, you just want to be a contrarian. Are you kidding me? Do you think that anybody is like, I want to love the shit that everybody hates, so all you guys do all day is talk shit to me? Like, no. Also, I saw Halloween Ends. I was going into my theater, and I saw Lee's tweet, and I'll never forget it. Jack-o'-lantern emoji, thumbs up emoji. That was it. That's all
That's all I needed.
He had just gotten out of it, and I was like, Lee and we agree a lot. I was like, I think I'm cautiously optimistic, but I went into the earliest show I could. So like, I didn't know the reaction yet. And it was as the night unfolded, as people were getting out of showtimes, that the comments were blowing up on my review. And it was like, do you think I walked out and I was like, oh, let's see. Does everybody hate it? Cool. I love this thing. No, I just recorded my review. Yeah. And people are just, it's wild, but you get that a lot too. You'll get that. You're just trying to be,
you know what? I just had a thought, and this is recent and it's too early to tell, but I think we might see this reaction with the new Crow, because I'm already seeing a little bit of it. And I didn't even like give the movie a glowing review. I gave it pretty much a midland 3 out of 5. And I already have people in my comments, this dude's stupid. That movie should not be, it shouldn't exist. And that's because, of course, Brandon Lee passed away. So we can't have this movie. But
then you can't make anything ever again.
Yeah, The Crow is tied with Halloween as my 2 favorite movies of all time. So I mean, but I'm just a movie fan. I love the franchise, and I'm going to call any movie like I see it. And if a movie has value, I'm going to tell you if it has value. I'm not going to go into The Crow thinking, arms up like this, I refuse to enjoy it. It just doesn't work that way for me. These are hardworking people behind the scenes that put all their blood, sweat, and tears into making this movie. And it's a gorgeous looking movie, and it does have some merit. And to be frank, I thought I was going to hate the movie based on the trailer. I thought the trailer looked like trash. The movie I was like, there's some things in this movie, especially as it goes along. I'm like, damn. All right. They went hard on some of this stuff. And I'm not going to spoil anything, obviously, but neither of you have seen The Crow yet, the new one, right?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
I'd have been there last night if I didn't have my kids, and then
Nick,
I get him tomorrow.
Nick's gonna like it. Me and Nick, we're wired the same. I guarantee you're gonna like it.
I know I'm gonna like it. I'm a big Bill Skarsgård fan. Although I heard it's not in the movie, which kind of pisses me off, but I love the twist they did with Post Malone's "Take What You Want" for the trailer. Like, I don't know what it want, but it kind of pumped me up. I was like, this looks sick. And also, I know this is blasphemous. I've never been a huge fan of the original. It's solid. I like The Crow. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a movie where I'm like, I have so much reverence for it, where I'm like, you cannot touch it.
Yeah,
like
I'm right there.
If Jaws got remade or The Exorcist got remade, I'd be like, fuck no. Why are you doing this? Don't touch that. But I'm not that way with The Crow. So I'm like, you know what? This looks like it's just going to be a revenge action movie with a lot of gore, a lot of action. As long as Bill Skarsgård can deliver, I feel like it's not a waste of time. Like that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I think if you're not hardcore on The Crow, then that's even better. But for me, the original Crow, I think it has to do with my age. That soundtrack is one of my. It is my all-time favorite rock soundtrack.
That's what's
Like,
up.
there's
That's
nothing
what's
can
up
touch
right
the Crow
there.
soundtrack. Yeah,
Yeah, it's amazing.
and then even before the movie came out, I really got kind of obsessed with Brandon Lee's death, and that's a bad word to use, but I just, man, it hit me when he died. I'd just seen Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire had been in the theater at the time, 1993, and like almost right after I saw Rapid Fire in the paper, USA Today, actor killed on set of movie The Crow. That name, The Crow, first time I'd ever heard the name, I was like, there's something about that name just sounds so interesting. And then this guy died and it's about a guy who comes back from the dead. So already I was like in before I saw, and then when I saw the movie, I was just like, it was so immersive in the theater, and I was just blown away by it.
I got a question for you, Lee, because somebody had said this in the chat, and I wanted to just address it really quick. But I want to say too, the same soundstage that they used to film where the soundstage that Brandon Lee died on. It's like there's like 6 or 7 houses in that lot. That same lot is where they recreated the Myers house for Halloween Kills. It's in Wilmington, North Carolina. It's the same lot. It was a different stage, but same lot. So when I went to do the filming locations for Kills, they have the buildings numbered. I think it was Studio 6 or whatever, where Brandon Lee died. And I was looking at it. I was like, that's kind of wild that's where that happened. Like, it's just weird. But also somebody said, and I read this, correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, they don't call him Eric Draven in this new movie. They only call him Eric. Correct?
Yeah, you never hear the word Draven, I don't think.
Yeah.
Close
like,
enough,
then why do it, right? Then it, like,
if
he's not Eric Draven, then call him something. Don't even call him Eric. Like, just
two things non-spoiler about there's some misconceptions, because when that photo came out, first thing, everybody's going to compare it to Jared Leto's Joker, but also people automatically thought they're going to have this type of music in the movie, and I don't even know what the type of music you would call it, but it's Gen Z type music, and that's what everybody thought was going to be in the movie. And I can tell you right now, the music fits right along with the music that you get in the first 3 movies, which is really cool. So I'm going to buy the soundtrack of it, and it has a Joy Division song, but it also has a lot of dark new wave type music in it, and that was a nice freaking bonus. I was like, they like the stuff that's in the first 3 movies, but I like that this isn't a movie like Alien Romulus, which I love, that is just kind of a love letter to the first movie. This is its own thing. They don't even like really mention, outside of the names Eric and Shelley, there's not even, I kind of wish there would have been a little bit of a Brandon Lee nod, but nothing. So in a way, it's kind of nice, because they were probably like, I don't want to touch sacred ground, so let's just go over here and do our own thing and tell our own story.
Yeah, I have full belief that that's what they did, that they knew that this was going to be controversial because of the circumstances with Brandon Lee with the original film. So I think that they were like, let's not really do that. But I read from a lot of people, and don't worry, guys, I promise we'll get back on Halloween too. I read from a lot of people.
What movie?
Yeah, welcome to DDLive.
I know that this.
I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, me too. I'm happy
it's more like it takes the bones, I guess, of like Eric and Shelley and The Crow, the lore there, but it goes in a totally different. Things don't unfold the way they do in the original film. It's almost like an alternate universe journey for the characters Eric and Shelley. That's what I've read, is that you're not really going to find a ton of comparisons between this film and the original film. And also I heard that the promo that they showed for Bill Skarsgård doesn't really do him justice, that it actually comes across better in the movie. Would you say
Much
that, Lee?
better. I say that in the review. Context is everything with this movie. And when you go into this movie, it's very immersive. And again, it's got some problems, but I can't get it out of my head. And most movies, they're like cheeseburgers with me. I walk out of the theater, I either like them or I don't, and then I move on to the next thing. And maybe it's a little bit because I'm a Crow fan, but there are things in this movie that are still there. Like, man, I'm dying to see it again. Yeah. So it could go up in my rating and I think that's going to happen with some people too. I think one thing I like about this movie is that you're not thinking of the original movie. And I think that's kind of a cool thing, you know, like when you go back and watch the original movie, you're not going to be like, yeah, this is so cool. And see, they tried to copy that, but they failed because this movie's fucking badass. No, it's two completely different experiences, which I think that's kind of a bonus. But Bill Skarsgård I think he's awesome in the movie. He's the best part for sure.
Good shit.
All right. Put Bill Skarsgård in every movie. That's what everyone wants now. They're just like,
he's
make
great.
him Freddy,
He's great.
make him everyone, and
himself.
Yeah.
I'm just glad they finally got him back. I'm just glad they finally got him back for Welcome to Derry. Because I was real worried about that. Dude, they had shot like half of that series without him being a part of it. And then it was like, I think they were like, well, it was a contract dispute at the beginning. I know that's what it was. And it was like,
it all works.
But I think they saw some dailies and they were like, we need Bill. Like this is just not going to work without him. And I don't know why you'd be cheap anyway. Those two movies made over $1 billion. Like, pay the dude.
Yeah.
Who cares? So
well, who knows what the budget of the show is, and so it's like one of those things, like trying to bring a guy that's like a massive star. Like everyone wants. What happens, guys? Every time someone's like, hey, wouldn't you want to see this movie brought back, this horror franchise? Who do you want? And they're like, I want Mike Flanagan to direct, and I want Bill Skarsgård to star. It's like
and Mike Flanagan goes on.
Flanagan can do no wrong. Okay, give Flanagan anything.
But also, shouldn't we don't we want those guys to be doing their own shit because they're so good? Like, but Robert Eggers is finally going into some other property, and I hope it's awesome. Like, to me, it looks really moody and cool, but also like, dude, I love it when you do your shit because that's why I love you. That's why I fell in love with you as a filmmaker.
Only thing I wanted, only established IP I wanted Mike Flanagan to touch was The Exorcist. So I was elated when that was announced because I was like, this guy, I said it like 2 years ago when Believer got announced and people were talking about it. I was like, I just feel like the only person I'd trust to do a modern day sequel to The Exorcist nowadays is Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
And I remember when it got announced. Yeah, people were like messaging me. They were like, dude, I remember when you said this on a stream. And I'm like, you have no idea how fucking over the moon I am right now. Okay. Like I'm on cloud nine. And you
spoke it into existence, man. That's what the universe is all about, right? You got to you helped manifest something. You know?
Well, Lee's the big time over here. He had Fede on. You need to work your magic and get Mike on.
I have no idea how that happened.
You need to get Mike on.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
I got an email because I'm in the press email system, and believe me, you're not going to see too many interviews like that. But one of the my Disney rep, he messaged me and is like, hey, Fetty he's going to do a press junket, but he's going to do also a virtual press junket. Would you like to interview him? And I'm like, what? Are you serious?
Can we talk about Evil Dead the whole time? Is that cool?
Yeah, I know. But what sucks is I only got like 5 minutes with him. But 5 minutes with Fetty, like one of my current favorite directors. But I definitely wanted to pick his brain about other stuff. But it was freaking cool.
But
well,
I'm just gonna throw it out there. The next Flanagan, I want to see Damien Rugna let's have him take on A Nightmare on Elm Street. Or let's have him have an Evil Dead film because When Evil Lurks is basically and When Evil Lurks, I was like, well, that's if Christopher Nolan did Evil Dead. It's like this real world Evil Dead. And then I'm over the moon about this guy, Jared Bankins, that was in the Twisted Metal show. I think he would be amazing for Freddy. He's the same age that Robert was when he started, and he's not a household name, which I love. And that's all I'll say about that. But Damien Rugna
would be a great choice to direct a New Nightmare.
Yeah.
And why the fuck do we not have a New Nightmare movie yet? That's crazy to me.
Craven Estate.
That's insane.
And finding the right people, right? There's no Vincent DeSanti for that world yet. Like I got Cecil Laird from the horror show channel is becoming that guy. But when you look at Friday the 13th, you're like, why aren't you bringing in somebody like Vincent? Like, don't you think he should be there for the conversation?
I just think they're terrified to recast Robert again. After the backlash with Jackie O'Haley, I think they're terrified. I really think they believe fans are not going to accept anybody. And that's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. You should probably go with somebody that's a little less known. That's how Skarsgård was with Pennywise. Yeah. Not a lot of people really knew him yet. And he kind of made that his own thing. You need to do that with Freddy. But I don't know. It's similar. We're just talking about the Welcome to Derry thing, and you guys are talking about Nightmare on Elm Street. It's like, why would you have to bring Bill back for that? Because it's just like back in the 80s with Nightmare 2, where they were like, we'll just recast Robert. We don't need him. When the person is at their peak, you bring them back. Like, you do not recast that. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when the character is so reliant on personality, which is why Brad Dourif kept on coming back to play Chucky. You know, it's like it's personality, you know, it's the same kind of thing. Like you learn from that. And it's that's what, you know, I don't know if you guys saw the Twisted Metal show. This is the last thing I'll say about that, because we need to talk about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. It's why we're all here. But Jared Bankins from the Twisted Metal TV show, I think he's only in the first few episodes of that series, but it hit me right away. I was watching the show and I was watching how much joy his sick, twisted character got out of torturing his victims. And it just hit me. It would talk about an epiphany where I was like, this guy should play Freddy Krueger. And then I was like, I'm making a video like tomorrow. Like, I looked over and told my wife, I think he should be Freddy Krueger. Like, I think this guy would be perfect, because like what you're saying, Nick, like not picking that household name. Again, he's like 37. It's perfect. Like if you write the character well, you can get 10, 15 good years out of him. And yeah. And hey, he's going to be on my channel in a couple weeks. So
you know? Maybe that's why we don't have a new Freddy yet, because they want to get it right. Because if you have, I'd say a no-name actor come in, and what if he just fucking knocks Freddy out of the park? Like just destroy, like, oh my God, to the level of what Robert Englund did.
Yeah.
The studio, they're going to be like, oh boy, here we go. We got to, because also thinking about this, guys, remakes. What's the last remake that started off its own franchise? It doesn't happen that often. It seems like we get a remake, maybe a 2 if you're lucky, and then we move on. Is that the current day and age, or is this just like
it was this? Well,
it's just people don't want to continue.
There were stop and starts all the time. You know, you'd have a remake do really well, and it might get a sequel, and then the sequel would have diminishing returns, get bad reviews, and then they'd get cold feet and they'd drop it. What they did was, in recent years, they stopped that entirely, and they were like, legacy sequels. Oh, yeah. And so Hollywood went that direction. Why remake when we can just take we make a sequel to one of the ones that's popular and bring whoever's alive back, and like, hey, you guys want to come back and play in the sandbox? And it's like, the
reunion tour.
Yeah,
it's the reunion tour.
Why remake I Know What You Did Last Summer when you can just make a sequel to it? Isn't that perfect? You know what I mean? So I feel like
didn't exist back in the 80s. You know, there was no such thing. And now it's just like, the reunion tour, just like Davey said. That's what they're doing.
In a weird way, like is Wes Craven's New Nightmare the first legacy sequel? Was Wes like even laying the groundwork there, and then no one even picked it up till later? Because it feels like it's 10 years after. And I know, like, now we think about it's not that big of a gap in time, but at that time, that 10 years felt really long because Freddy had changed so much.
But the one that kicked the door down in the mainstream it wasn't the first one, but the one that kicked the door down was Halloween 2018.
Absolutely.
And we all know that, because then you saw Scream come back, Texas Chainsaw Massacre come back. Shit, they're making a new Leprechaun. Like,
well, even Rambo came back. Now Happy Gilmore's coming back. Like, it's pouring over because dollars work. So when you see the money,
did you say Happy Gilmore's coming back?
They're doing
Happy Gilmore too.
And
they're doing another Happy Gilmore. Holy shit!
Yep.
And I tell you what, I'm going to say this now. If they don't have, if the plot doesn't involve a teams tournament where Happy has to go like rescue a destitute, depressed shooter and convince Shooter to be on the team with him, to where they get to be the good guys, and you have a redemption arc and you have a new bad guy, like, ooh, that would be so sweet.
They made a sequel. They made a sequel to Joe Dirt. Nothing is sacred anymore. But it's, I kind of don't find requels offensive. Like, I really don't find them offensive. But yeah, some of them I'm just like, in recent years, man, I was never a fan when I first watched it, and I'm especially not now. I know, I'm pretty sure Lee's a fan of it. I don't know how you feel, Davey, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, I think the thing that drags the movie down is it's trying to be a requel. Like if they had just dropped the whole Sally bullshit and it was just a standalone thing, I'd be like, okay, whatever, this is fun. But like it felt so shoehorned and cringy, and I was just like, I can't do it. Like I don't know.
And it's
here's
like
why I love
85 minutes. It's like, is this even a movie?
Here's why I love that movie so much.
What are we
because
doing?
it had the balls to do this. It builds up Sally just like it does Laurie Strode in Halloween 2018. So you're thinking, oh, they're gonna have this great showdown between Sally and Leatherface. And the showdown is him literally throwing her in the trash. I literally stood up in my living room and I did a backflip, and then I went and got me some pizza, and then I came back.
You're bragging about your physical prowess. We can already tell you're very fit, Lee. You don't have to talk about it.
The bus scene, oh my god, when he's like,
the bus scene's great. Bus scene's great.
Sure. Anything and you canceled, bro.
Yeah.
And I will say this as somebody that's like sort of in the middle as far as like politics and everything go. I thought it was refreshing that they brought in like modern characters, and they sort of subverted expectations by not having every modern character be like your typical kind of like, whatever people are expecting to see from those types of people in Hollywood. It was sort of refreshing because I'm like, if we just sort of like recognize it and sort of acknowledge it, then we can have some fun with it. Like, so instead of acting like we're trying to be subtle when we're really not being subtle at all.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the one franchise that I think, like, a new movie comes out, I have no idea how it's going to be.
It's a grab bag.
I have no clue whatsoever. I couldn't even guess.
Yeah. But I will say, to sort of bring it back to Halloween 2, I do think that some of what Rob does here, it sort of reminds me a little bit of Marcus Nispel's TCM 03, like a little bit of that, like, shaking the camera when like the impact happens, just that grit that it has. And, one thing that Nick, I think it was, it might've been Lee that brought it up, where it's, Rob Zombie is just sort of like, I don't give a fuck. And I think this movie is really punk rock. Yeah. And when I say punk rock, I mean it as a way of life and a concept, not necessarily the music, although that's represented as well. And I think that's really cool. Laurie's got the Black Flag shirt. Bad Brains is in the soundtrack. There's a Circle Jerks record. There's all sorts of punk stuff all over the record store, of course. Frank Zappa on the toilet. That poster's amazing.
Yeah.
But there's this whole sort of punk rock approach to the film where it's kind of like, this is going to be sort of the antithesis of what you think it would be. Rob Zombie had to make his remake and he was put in a box, and then he finally gets to stretch, and it's sort of like the same things that I like about, like, I'm a huge punk rock music fan. Like, I like the rough edges. I like the fact that it's not like, that maybe I have to meet him halfway as an audience member, but also I think that like sometimes, like I talk about it all the time on my channel, like we need to be smarter as an audience, and we need to be more like critical as an audience, because the only way we're going to get better art is a smarter audience begets better art. So we need to hold those people accountable, support the people that do things well, and also like, be not just intelligent enough, but be willing enough to like go on that journey with the artist and appreciate what they do. And I think here, as a guy that's not the hugest fan of like Rob Zombie's entire body of work, and not really that much of a fan of his music, although I think it's really interesting to do like metal dance music, which is what he ended up doing when he went solo. He's a dude where I'm like, man, I could kick it with this guy. We would listen to the same shit. Like we would love the same stuff. And I think that's like, it's a brother from another mother. Even if I don't love everything that he's got, like I love what I love of his works so well for me.
Rob Zombie's probably he's one of the hardest working directors, musicians. Like that guy's always, that's why he has no kids, because he's got no time for kids. He's got his hands in everything. I know.
Yeah.
But Davey, you made me think.
Is he more human than a human?
I think he is. Have you guys seen that meme where it's like, I could watch Hereditary, or I could watch Nosferatu. Fuck it. Let's watch Sleepaway Camp 3 again.
Yeah.
I love that meme.
Yep.
Now let's talk about Myers in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Let's circle it back, okay? Because Myers is really interesting in this movie. Visually, the way he acts. Also, if you want to tie it in with all the trauma and everything, and you got the freaking Rorschach with the what is the deal with the white horse? What is the relationship with the white horse and Myers? Nick, I'll let you take this one. Go ahead.
So I get the white horse. Okay. No.
Sorry.
So it's funny because one of the best moments of our podcast we've ever done is when Christian and we did an episode on Halloween 2 and we mentioned the white horse, and I have it clipped on my phone forever of Christian freaking out. And he's like, he explains it in the first fucking scene of the movie. It's on the fucking screen. Like, he's freaking out because he hates when people complain about it. The white horse to me, and I think it's spelled out pretty well. So it's just like, it's so stupid.
Just tell us what it is.
It is just a physical. It's a symbol. It is essentially, when you see the white horse, you are not only do you know you're looking from Michael's perspective, but it's a sign of his psychosis. We're in the mind of somebody that doesn't think like we do. That doesn't see the world like we do, that doesn't have the same goals as we do. And also, yes, about the linked family trauma, because the whole idea of the movie is to bring the family back together again. See, that's one thing that in the original series, although we had the familial connections, we never really dove into that head on and go, but why? Why is he after the family? In Halloween 6, it was because it was a curse that he had to do it. He had to, wipe out his bloodline. But in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, it is solely just he wants to bring them together again. Mom's gone. Young me is dead too. Michael Myers doesn't view himself as Michael Myers anymore. That's why he views himself as a child. That's when Michael Myers died. What you are now seeing is the shape. And he wants to bring his sister into the further, whatever you want to call it, like kill her so they can all be together again. It's all about bringing that family back together. And
Liana's response, that floored me.
Hey, I'd buy it.
Can we
I'd buy it.
Horse?
Yeah. I put it in my family room.
How much is in the budget?
My wife would look really good next to a horse.
A horse? I got her this dress, and I think if we could just get a white horse next to her, I think that would really send it home.
But I mean, Rob can at times be very on the nose with his symbolism, like he really can. And this is one of those times where it's like, remember what this white horse means. Every time we're showing it to you, it means something. It's drawing this connection. But I think it's necessary. So that's. And I'll tell you the truth, man. I got that, I think, from my first viewing. I don't know how you guys felt, but like I wasn't confused by it. Like I was like, okay, I read the excerpt at the beginning, and if you're following the story well enough and the themes that the movie is playing with, although as time goes on, you get a better understanding of it. But I didn't walk out of the theater the first time and go, "What the hell was that about?" Like
it's the Martha of the movie.
Well, it's like in the original film, like Michael, there's something that's driving Michael that's making him, do the things he's doing in the first film. He sees the girls, he's interested, he watches each one of them, he waits for the perfect time to strike. There's something guiding him the whole time, and we never know what it is. And so I think what Rob's doing in this film is he's trying to say, like, you know what, the white horse is just the thing that's driving Michael. It's what's driving the situation. Scott had said up there that it was a MacGuffin, and it doesn't mean anything, but really in a sense, maybe it means nothing, but maybe it means everything because it's what's guiding him. And what's really cool is I'm seeing everyone in the chat's got their own ideas. So maybe
I love that.
Maybe the Rorschach is this next level thing where like literally the white horse is a Rorschach. What do you see in the white horse?
And that's why they had like the Rorschach scene in the movie with Laurie,
Yeah, and you assign that to Michael, right? It's like, what is the white horse to you? And that another thing, just like anything with art or with poetry, it's like, what do you get out of the art? Because once the artist puts it out there, it's all of ours. It's not just theirs. So it's like what you take from it means something too.
And I think that scene with the therapist was when she said she sees a horse. That was clearly Rob Zombie trying to tell the audience of this link between Laurie and Michael. Like that was clearly what that was. So, and I do hate, I've seen some comments in the chat, like, and I know people they like to give this movie a hard time, but like, one thing I don't think we should ever do, if we don't like a director or a writer or whatever it may be, we got to give them their flowers every now and then. This was not put in the movie just to do it. He's saying something with it. And the fact that it created such a discussion and people have their own view of it, I think was the point entirely. It wasn't like, let's just put this here and whatever. No, there was a reason for it. And it's one of the things, there are two things you always hear about when people talk about this movie. And it is especially when they hate it, stupid white horse and his ghost mom or Hobo Myers. Those things create conversation for a reason. They were there for a reason. So, yeah.
And I think he's trying to reinvent Michael. One of the things he said in the commentary is he's like, Michael's no longer the Shape. He's no longer like the ghost figure, the boogeyman from the first movie. Like, we're just dealing with him in a different way. And like, honestly, like, I love when creatives take big swings. Like, I'd rather you take a big swing and fall on your face, and I'll give you credit for the ambition. And I think that's another part of the punk rocker in me. With a movie like this guy over my shoulder, like the ambition, like makes it something that I love so much because I just think it's like gutsy, man. I mean, he made this. Halloween 2 could have been a by the numbers thing. He could have had nothing to do with it. Like, that was the original plan anyways. So I'm thankful, like all things considered, like I'm so happy that Rob Zombie came back. I think that this film and like his interpretation of Michael it's some of the most interesting work within the whole franchise.
You can't have a deep discussion about Halloween Resurrection. You can't like break open the character that got impaled by the fence. You can't take it any farther than that. Where Rob Zombie's Halloween, you could literally take Halloween 2, sorry. You could literally take just about every sequence in the movie and you take a peek over in this corner and over in this corner and just break it apart, And I would wager that Rob Zombie's probably well read because he's a musician, because he's a director, and musicians, I think they like to read because it just gives them ideas. And like what Beth's saying there in the Bible, Christ rides a white horse out of heaven at the head of the armies of heaven to judge and make war upon the earth. And I wouldn't doubt it if Rob Zombie probably took a little inspiration from the Bible. I mean, directors do it all the time, but I love all the symbolism that is in this movie. The mother and the son, the young version of Myers kind of following Laurie along the way, what is it that she says to him? Now let's go have some fun or something like that. When he's about to have a bloodbath. Just really dark symbolism in that movie.
Yeah, and you can tell. I think some of the best creative people are just really good audience members and students of it. You have to have a love for it. You have to pay attention to the finer details. So I think that he takes inspiration from all over the place, music, movies, and I think that's one of the fun things about a film like this is it all sort of comes together. Like for me, it works, and especially like that punk rock approach and everything. I don't know. To me, it's like a nuclear reaction. This film, it's just like something that's just like boiling and about to just like boil right on over. And it's not really comfort food for comfort cinema. And I guess that's why I like the director's cut. Yeah, because I want it to be as uncomfortable as possible. Best, But Halloween does have comfort cinema in it, and this is the more. I think this is the more artsy Halloween film, and so of course, like this is the movie that I walked out of, and I was like, "Whoa, shit!" People are not gonna like this movie. I didn't walk out of Halloween Ends saying that. I walked out of this movie knowing that. So I should have known better though. Because Ends definitely takes some big swings for sure. Absolutely. But once Corey's in the mask, it feels like Myers. So what can you do? You know what it is too, and I hate to flip it back to Ends, but I do have a thing for copycat. Like when a franchise that's had like say 7 movies or whatever, eventually you got to have a copycat killer movie, And I always enjoy like if they're done well. I'm always curious about copycat killer movies, because they don't really do them that often.
If you think about it, Lee, every Scream movie after the first one's a copycat movie. Every single one.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
So I mean, people pick and choose what copycat. Friday 5. I mean, for all the things about Friday 5 that people have to say, and some of them are warranted, don't get me wrong, that movie is a deliciously trashy, like I don't know what words I'd use, but like that's junk food. That's junk food.
That's
like
a cheeseburger.
it's so bad
With
for
extra
you,
pickles.
but like
Yeah.
you're having fun. Like don't lie and
It's
say you're not having
it's the
fun.
candy. It's the Friday 5 is the candy bar that Joey gets all over the clean laundry. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I get to brag and say I did a full commentary with Deborah Voorhees on Friday 5, and that's one of the coolest experiences I've ever had.
I get to brag that I've listened to that commentary, and
Yeah.
now I'm on your channel all these years
She
later.
was
so I'm
so
bragging.
easy to. She's still a good friend to this day, but she was so easy to talk to during that commentary. You know, she was just really fun, and I thought for sure once we got to the scene.
Sure.
That it would be awkward, but man, she just coasted us right through it.
She
and
just popped him out right there, and she was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah."
You can go that far, but you know, yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
Now, guys, is there anything we didn't cover with Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 that you would like to cover?
Yeah, you sent something when you were talking to us the other day, and I saw Robin in the chat mention this, and I do want to address this. Lee and I, we have talked about this before. There was this rumor going around for a long time that Rob had filmed pretty much everything behind the scenes. He wanted to do a documentary even bigger than his first one. So he compiled like 8 hours of footage, and like it's never going to see the light of day. And people were like, is that real? Is it real? Yes, it's real. It's a real thing that happened. He recorded all of it. And I got more info on this when I talked to Sean Clark, exclusively about this topic. We really delved into it because he's good friends with Malik, as everybody knows, and has been for years. So he was able to shed light on this. He was like, Rob had said in an interview years ago, that shit got locked in a vault. And the Weinstein said, Bob himself specifically said, that will never be released. You're not releasing that to the public. And a lot of people are like, why? And Rob was like, it's just because the shoot was so hectic. And, you know, they don't want the public to see that. Sean Clark expanded and was like, no, yes, that is it. But it's also because you would have seen every single day Bob calling Rob multiple times a day on the set, screaming at him, saying, I read this. You're not keeping this in the script. I saw the dailies. It's fucking terrible. You need to cut that out of the movie. And Rob basically, it would have made Rob look unprofessional too, because Rob basically was like, fuck you. Malik owns the property. He told me I can do whatever I want with it. So kick rocks. And so it was this contentious thing back and forth every single day on set. And I saw some comments like, didn't Rob say he made H2 as like a fuck you to the franchise and stuff like that? No. Rob only came back to do H2 because Malik personally called him when they were going to hire a French filmmaking team to make this movie anyway. And it was going to be a sequel to the remake. Malik called Rob and said, they're going to do this.
Yeah.
And they're going to bring your characters back. Will you please come back? And Rob was convinced to come back because Malik said, do whatever you want. Get weird, go way out there, do whatever you want. And Rob said, okay, you're going to let me do whatever I want. I'm going to make this my Halloween movie. And he did. And Bob hated that so much, and hated that even though he was the financier of it, it wasn't his property. So he couldn't tell Rob, you can't do this. He tried every day, but he couldn't tell him that. So that's why we're never going to see that footage. But yes, it exists. Yes, that all happened. Believe me, it breaks my heart every single day that I'll never see that footage, because Michael Lives, one of the best making ofs I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah,
it takes you from pre-production all the way to post. And like
4 hours never flies by so fast.
Yes, I would love H2s, but at the same time, I do understand why it'll never come out, because it won't make anybody involved look good. Not a single person involved is going to look good.
Yeah.
Now, nowadays, knowing what we know, you might go, good for you, Rob. Fuck the Weinsteins. Like, they suck.
But,
And
it's
that
interesting.
company got liquidated, if I'm not wrong. So that footage exists somewhere. Rob's exact words were, it is locked in a vault and it'll never see the light of day.
I think it'll come out one day on the next like big box set. I think Shout Factory will do whatever they can, because they acquired the producer's cut of Halloween 6, which 19 years that thing sat in a vault. And it was my holy grail of call it a bonus feature, call it a different version of the movie. I had that VHS that was the bootleg of that for years. And I was like, well, man, it sucks that we'll never see this because it's so different. And we finally got it. So I think Shop Factory, they can do some wheeling and dealing, and the right guy talks to the right guy or girl. And then next thing you know, we got that 8-hour documentary or whatever they condense it down to. But I was just watching like an interview right before this with Rob Zombie, and he was talking to Howie Mandel. He was on his podcast, and he was talking about this shooting. Halloween 2 was so stressful, and every single day, Bob would call him constantly on the phone, and this is what he'd do. He'd go, "Shit!" Every time he'd look at his phone, he'd go, "Fuck," because he knew that they'd be in the middle of a sequence that cost them, let's say, freaking $500,000 to set up, and then, hey, I got a great idea. Why don't you do this? And he's like, you dumb idiot. If I do that, I got to freaking scrap everything I just did. And you got to spend another freaking $500,000. And you're the producer. And you don't understand this shit. So I don't know how he didn't go insane.
All of that's so evident on the commentary, guys. If you got the box set, you can listen to Rob's commentary, and it's, man, the disenchantment and the regret. And I mean, he's also like really thankful that he got to actually put his cut out there. But there's a lot of frank discussion. It's just him. There's no moderator, and he lets it loose about how, everyone on set had no idea, like that the door wasn't going to be balsa wood, that the shack wasn't going to be balsa wood, all these things that they spent extra money on that cost us more time in our shoots. And he was like, at the end of filming, he goes, they told us we only had 1 day of filming, but I just said, we're just going to keep on shooting. So he's like, the sun went down, the sun came up, the sun went down, the sun came up. We never stopped because I knew as soon as we stopped, they would stop us. But if we kept on going, they wouldn't come in and interrupt us while we were shooting. So Rob really was at a point where he's like, I'm just going to, like, literally, it's punk as fuck. Like, I'm just going to keep on going. Like, you're going to have to come in and shut my ass down. And it's interesting that, Harvey will harass the women and then Bob harasses the creative people. So it's like they really got an interesting tandem going there with the friggin' Weinsteins. And God bless Malik Akkad. Yeah. Man, when I was at H45, the guy was a man of the people. He was walking around to people, like a bunch of us were hanging out. He came up to us and hung out. Like, you can tell that he just loves this world. And of course he loves it because we keep him in business, but also it's like he gets it. Like, we're so fortunate that with Halloween, even though they have video games and board games, like, the main thing is still the main thing. And it's all about Myers and making movies and pushing the property along. And then you look at something like Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's just this giant question mark. So, like, I'm thankful that Malik was there to be.
People take Malik for granted.
I was
driving force.
I was going to say this might be controversial to some, but as a diehard fan of this series, Malik is a far better owner of this than Mustafa ever was. And it's not to take anything away from Mustafa, but Mustafa kind of did it for the wrong reasons near the end there. It was, I just want to keep making money. That's all I care about. And Malik, there have been multiple instances over the years. Malik stopped production on a Halloween film in that period of 10 years between 2018 and H2 because they wanted to shoot in like Romania or Bulgaria. And he was like, no, we shoot in America. And because it needs to look like the Midwest in America, they were 3 weeks away. And he was like, we're not doing it. I will not sign off on that. And like the pitch to Blumhouse, people shit on Blumhouse. And Christian and I did an episode where we went through Blumhouse's entire like videography. They have more good movies than bad movies. I mean, but the bad stand out. I get it, whatever. But it's like, that was Malik. Like Malik and Jason Blum made that happen. And every turn since Malik has owned this franchise, he's given his creatives control to do what they want. He's given them the finances. He has marketed the shit out of these movies. He's still never backed away from Rob Zombie after H2. Still to this day, he says he's proud of that era. He's proud of those two movies, and he should be. Malik is he's gone about this the right way. If Mustafa was still around and was still the main owner of
Malik's
this,
patient.
we would have had 5 movies in between H2 and 2018.
Yeah.
Because he would just want to make money. He would have been cool with them going straight to video. I guarantee it. If it got to that point with the Weinsteins, he'd be like, fuck it. We need to put another one out. But Malik is like, no. Sean Clark told me really quick. Sean Clark told me right before Ends came out, before they did the press tour, Malik was sailing on his yacht, like around where he was like, he's going all over the place right now, partying. He's like, but he's having meetings like every other day on the phone and with people about the future of Halloween. And so many people want a piece of this pie, and he's listening to all of them. But it took how long before he finally was like, okay, let's re-up with, with Miramax and whatnot. But he's always listening because he cares about us as the fans. But I think most importantly too, when he brings someone into this series, he cares that creative gets to do what they want to do and gets to feel like they get to spread their wings a little bit. And I just, he's a man of the people. Malik Akkad, he's fucking phenomenal. I love the guy. When he passes, I hope whoever he passes these rights along to has the heart and the brain that he does, because he's the right guy for this. He just is.
Yeah. And he's still kind of a young buck. So, I mean, it's like, we wouldn't have gotten something like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 with Mustafa in charge. That's for sure. And I do think the one thing that Malik takes from his father is that, Michael is always like the number one. Like, you treat Michael seriously. And like, when we were hanging out, he came up, there was like, you guys know Cody Snyder, who's always hanging out in the chats and all these horror channels. I'm sitting there hanging out with Cody, and Malik comes up. He's a couple drinks in, the funnest drunk I've ever seen in my life. This guy was a rock star at the after party. And he comes up and he's like, Dr. Pepper reached out to me and they're like, we want to do this commercial with Michael. And I was like, fuck no. And I was like, that's right. And I was like, and that's, your father was the same exact way, where it's like, you do not make like a joke out of this guy. You didn't. And he gave me this look where he's like, oh, I think this guy might kind of get it too. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, this is all because of everything that you guys have done. And I'm just excited to see the next step. And something like this movie without somebody like Malik to be there for Rob, we would have never seen it. Who knows?
Well, I mean, if you look back at the last 5 movies, he had a 2-parter with Rob Zombie and he had a 3-parter with David Gordon Green. That's only 2 directors. It's really solid. And most producers, to be able to come up with a trilogy out of like that, you're probably not going to see that with Nightmare on Friday. I can't imagine them having the balls to say, hey, we got a trilogy idea for Friday the 13th. But for Halloween, Malik made it happen. He has the power to do it.
The proof is right there, Lee. Look at Nightmare 2010. They toyed with us for 2/3 of the movie that they were going to make him innocent. That I was actually going, the first time I watched that movie, oh, this is ballsy. I like this. And then they chickened out because they were too afraid to be different. And what is the world, guys? From the beginning of mankind, adapt or die. Evolve or die. It's just the way it is.
That's how you create legacy. You don't create legacy by pretty much doing the same old thing the last 10 movies did. You got to take a risk, and I think that's why Halloween's still around, because if you look back at all 13 movies, most of them are quite different, because there was always the Mustafa ones are the ones that are very similar. And I love the Thorn trilogy. Don't get me wrong, but and I hate to say this, but if Mustafa didn't pass away, we would have never gotten Rob Zombie's movies. They would, because they were planning on making Halloween 9. They were going to do a sequel to Resurrection. And then Mustafa passed away. And then Malik said, let's take a step back, because I need to process my father's passing. Yeah. And then after he grieved his father, he said, you know what? Let's start fresh. Because I want to honor my father by letting all those movies exist, and I don't want to continue that. I want to start a new legacy of my own. Yeah. So that's why he started with Rob Zombie. So
yeah,
I think that's a good place to end the stream. We're almost at 2 hours here, but man, you guys made this it flew by way too quick. But I thank you guys so much, and I'm begging my audience, if you're not subscribed to Davey Deathray or Nick from the Lost River Drive-In, I'll put links to their channels in the info box. But I always like to ask my guests what's on tap. If you have anything you're planning, Davey, is there any reviews or projects that you're looking forward to jumping into in the future?
Yeah, like right now I'm going through the entire Tales from the Crypt TV series on my channel. So I'm
Nice.
reviewing an episode like every other week, and then I'm doing a live watch party with all of my members and that kind of stuff. I have a weekly late night talk show called Late Night with the Davy that's every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern. I've got
Nice.
everything booked through September, so I'm really pumped about that. Nick was one of my very first guests on the show. It's just we're about to hit the 16th episode, so just kind of like a late night talk show format where I say what's up to the crowd, and then we do like an interview discussion, and I just sort of talk to the guest about sort of what they're known for, but also try to find something a little something that they don't get to talk about all the time that they love. So that's weekly. I mean, other than that, I'm like 150 away from 1,000. So you know what, Lee?
Nice,
I'm
man.
gonna challenge your audience right now. I'm gonna put on my radio voice.
Do it.
Guys. If I reach 1,000 subs by the end of September, we'll do something really special. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be something way cooler than like a naked stream. It's not going to be something self-indulgent like that. It'll be something like for you guys. All right. Exactly.
Davey
Like thumbs
OnlyFans.
down. Who wants to see that? But yeah, just really at this point for the channel, it's all about naturally cultivating everything and still finding my voice, and building a community with the people that show up to the streams, and talking horror and finding that the things that we have in common are so much bigger and so much more important than the things that tear us apart. So that's another thing we celebrate over there. So yeah, just gonna keep on grinding. And Lee, again, I gotta say to your audience, it's just completely surreal to be here on your channel after watching you for so long. So thank you so much, man.
Hey, the honor's all mine, man. This was too fun. Nick, what do you got going?
Well, I was giving a thumbs down, Davey, because like, nah, dude, you got to do it. Go all out, get weird. Screw it, but
be punk rock like Rob Zombie.
Yeah, dude, be punk. Yeah. So I've been on Lee's channel. He's been on my channel. We've had him on the podcast a couple times, and so it's always an honor to be on here. Obviously, you're looking at 3 different generations of YouTuber. It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, although I did start my channel before Lee, I didn't really, because I uploaded like 1 or 2 videos as a teenager, and then I just left it alone for 10 years. But you're looking at 3 different generations where like,
wow,
Lee's the guy here. Like he's been doing this consistently for years now. Then a couple years ago, I came back into the fold, and now Davey is getting into the fold himself. And it's really cool to see that. Like, it's just this kind of full circle moment. But so I always love being able to chat with Lee. It helps that we have a lot in common, and we get along a lot. Christian, it's funny. It's funny because before I ever got to stream with Lee, I was like, oh, Christian, like you're buddies with Lee. Like you should get me in touch with him. And it's like, I think Christian was apprehensive at first a couple years ago because he's like, oh, this guy wants to get in touch with Lee. But after we did, it's like, oh, dude, Lee and I could shoot the shit forever. But as far as what I got coming up, we're recording the next episode of the podcast on Sunday night. It's been like a month and a half since we did one. That was because I've been out of town 3 times in the last month and a half. And then with his schedule now too, we usually do like twice a month now. But so we're recording that Sunday. I'm going to have a review for The Crow out. And then also I am currently in preparation for what I'm doing in October, because I'm sure Lee knows this too. And Davey, I just want to give you this bit of advice for this October. Milk the shit out of the Halloween content, because it sells in October, and it's easy. It's easy to be someone like myself or like Lee that we've done it in a couple Octobers. So it's like, and we're Halloween guys. So no one can accuse us of, oh, you're just trying to capitalize off Halloween because it's popular. Buddy, nuh-uh. I've been a Halloween guy since day one. So, but yeah, so I'm planning that. October is always really fun. Probably the best month of analytics my channel gets year in and year out.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really excited for that. But yeah, that's what I got coming up. But again, Davey, I was on Davey's channel a month and a half or so ago, and it's been really cool to see you start to get a following behind you as well.
Mhm.
And people that I've been in my chats, they know you and they're in your chats. And it's like same thing with Lee. I've met people through Lee that now are in my chats. It's just really, really cool. So keep doing you, brother. You're killing it. And
Thanks, man.
I see Davey's name like
Yeah.
like he's really doing it right. So
he's got the personality for it. That's the biggest thing. It's all about personality.
And honestly, like I'm a huge fan. So like for me, part of what fuels me and propels me is also being in the chat and hanging out with everyone, even if it's not, my shit. So like I think that's one of the things that I tried doing music for so long, for whatever reason, it didn't work. And I'm like, man, maybe I found something here. Like
the horror community is the best community because like you said, with the music that I watch a lot of music channels, that section of YouTube is so fragmented and weird. And but horror, man, it's just like it's like we're one big family. And everybody comes on each other's channels and we cut up and we bitch at each other about Halloween ends. But at the end of the day, man, if that's the worst thing that we bitch about, then hey, so be it. I'm so glad I'm in the horror community. I love it. I love the people in the chat. It's awesome.
Yeah, so. And it's guys, at the end of the day, it's just I don't watch a lot of YouTube anymore. I really, really don't. And so if I pop in, it's because I'm like, I genuinely like this person and I don't want to see what they're up to. I only watch a couple minutes most of the time because I'm just not someone that's terminally on my phone. I try not to be, especially, when world events, as we all know what we're barreling toward, it's like you kind of gotta stay away from the internet.
Just stay off Twitter. You're okay.
Yeah. So it's just I try not to be terminally online, but I always try to pop in when I see Lee live or Davey live, and it's funny because Lee does a good job of trying to like shout out if he sees someone in the chat, but there's times where he's got hundreds of people in his chat and I'm like, I'm not even gonna it's impossible to keep up with that shit. I just like pop in, throw a like and hop out. But yeah, I mean, you guys, it's been so cool. Lee recently cracked 60K, guys. Obviously, you know that because you're all watching Lee's channel right now. So congrats to Lee. He'll be at 100,000 before he knows it, and then he's just forever stuck as a YouTuber. You might just you could go full time and just hey, it works.
Who knows? We could see. We'll see what happens. I actually like my day job.
You could stop reviewing bad movies like Chris Stuckman.
No.
Hey, the movie's bad, so I'm not going to review it because in no way does that indicate
it's going to be about film celebration.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I got to give mad props to Chris Stuckman. He was one of my main influences for doing YouTube in the first. I was like, damn, he seems like me, like a normal guy. He's not like Siskel and Ebert. And so I got to give him credit. And hey, look at that. I got a new channel member. Yeah. Thank you, Jamie. Really nice.
Jamie's awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Chris is the one that has Shelby Oaks, right? That's Chris.
Yeah,
He's doing that, right? Yeah.
And I'm
good for him, man.
I hope good for him. Shelby Oaks is awesome.
Good for him. Came out, he's a little YouTuber, blows up into a huge YouTuber, and now he's directing a horror movie with a major studio. That's awesome. I mean, great for him.
You know what?
A rising tide raises all ships.
I definitely want to get more on like guests on the show because on my DDLives I don't have guests as much, and you guys made me like really want to start doing it more. So maybe I can get you guys to like come back on and we can talk about horror news.
You know what? This guy acts like Davey, he acts like if he DMs us, we're gonna say no. Are you kidding me? You DM me.
The price is right.
I left.
Make my Venmo pop off.
I left work early and drove my ass home quick as hell.
I know.
Scarfing down Burger King because I'm never gonna say no to these guys that I've looked up to for years that are genuine friends of mine. So yeah, whenever you want, whatever the topic.
Yeah, dude, Nick, every time I have you on, man, it's just like we flow, and I'm getting that with Davey too. So I would love to talk news, like horror news, with some other guys. So we might be doing that in the future. And you don't even have a choice.
Oh yeah.
So there you go.
That would be fun.
Dude, we did a live stream loving on Halloween Ends. Me and Lee did for we watched it. It was like 2+ hours long. The video was, and then afterward we sat in the virtual green room and talked for 20-30 minutes because I could just shoot the shit with Lee. So it's when you collab with people sometimes and then afterward you're like, I don't don't
Yeah.
know. The vibe wasn't really right there.
Sometimes
Maybe
the
I can get Chris
chemistry-
Snyder on the show. You know, maybe
Yeah.
I can get lucky.
Absolutely.
Chris Snyder knows his
Yeah.
shit too, man. He does some good.
Oh yeah, he
knowledge.
does.
Yeah,
he does.
movie
Yeah.
Misfits is great. I love
Yeah,
love
love
what
it.
he does.
Yep. Chris
He's
is
got
good
some
people.
big stuff coming up too.
Yeah, his Scream stuff. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, anytime.
anyway, guys, I guess I'm
anytime
gonna hang it up with that. But man, this was so damn fun and easy.
we-
But yeah, make sure you guys subscribe to Nick and Davey, and have a wonderful night, everybody. Love you guys. Mwah.
Take care, y'all.